first panel discussion for the day. The topic is digital transformation. I welcome all the panel members and our viewers. What we'll do is we will first have a quick round of introduction from each of the panel members. I'll request everyone to just introduce yourself with a one-line statement. I'll start off with my introduction. I am Sandeep Sonpatki. I am a partner with Deloitte in our consulting business based out of Mumbai. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Manish. I've been working in Kotak Mahindra Bank for last 9 years. I handle the digital channels for the bank.
Hi, morning. I am Sunil Soni, CIO of Punjab National Bank, and I've been here with the bank for almost about 34 years now.
Hi, I'm Topendra. I work with RBL Bank. I've been with the bank for about 7 years and I handle digital banking for the bank.
Hi, this is Vaibhav Joshi. I have recently joined Equitas Small Finance Bank as a Chief Digital Officer.
Hi, this is Sachin Londe from Datameto. We are a technology company. We are into DevOps. The good part is today is my 9th anniversary of Datameto.
Ashish Ahuja. I am the Chief Operations Officer with Fino Payments Bank. Back to you, Sandeep.
Hey, thanks. Sorry. All right. So let's get started with our topic, digital transformation. And this is a word that we've heard for a number of years now, right? With the entire mobile revolution and uh, all of us having a smartphone in our hand, which enables us to access anything and everything from anywhere. And banking is no different, right? Many of you have been pioneers in your own respective fields and respective organizations, helping launch digital transformation for your respective institutions, both across banks and NBFCs. And this digital transformation obviously got accelerated because of COVID, as we've all seen that all of us have been locked in our respective homes and not able to go out and venture out, but still being able to continue our services. And banks obviously was one of the critical services that was identified. But it has led to a lot of changes in ourselves, in the way we are servicing our customers, the way we are thinking about products that can be offered and how can they be delivered, and obviously operating in the marketplace. So I would like to actually start off and understand from some of you as to how has your organization responded to it. And obviously it's been 8 to 10 months now, and there have been a lot of learnings on how you responded. But I would also want you to talk about more from a futuristic perspective as to what has it meant for you from a products perspective. What products have you brought about? How changes have you brought about? I know some of us may have struggled initially, where we may not have all the products, or the processes themselves may not be geared towards a completely digital. So some of that I think will be helpful for us to touch upon. So let me invite first from the banking side, Mr. Sunil Soni, if you want to share your perspective, how Punjab National Bank has responded to it.
Sure. Thank you, Sandeep. And good morning, all viewers. You see, as a bank, the major most challenge was to see that we remain connected with the people around. And the services which the bank normally offers is the financial and non-financial services. So as long as the non-financial services were concerned, we were still able to, put it across. And since we had the digital channels already up and running in the shape of our applications, so we were able to, pull it along, and we were able to see that at least the essential services are being made available to the customers. However, looking at the financial services, that was a big challenge because essentially either there were two segments. One is the people uh, who would like to have the financial services or financial transaction done. However, it was difficult for them to come out due to the scare. And on the contrary, there were some who were kind of there with regard to their needs because they were hard pressing and things. So we broke our problems into smaller segments and essentially saw that we reach out to the people at large. Reaching out from a perspective that which are the interiormost locations where people would require services was quantified, and the extended arm of the bank, which is our business correspondents, they reach out to the public at large, do these activities in a very secured and safe manner. However, looking at the facilitation which was required at the bigger cities, uh, people were a little careful in attempting or attending to their financials, and they've been able to come across and reach out to the vending places where the cash would be financed to them. That was one way of looking at it. However, the other segment where you say that this was the past, but however, looking at what is the future that holds for us in this, there was an opportunity where we saw that a lot of other products which were kind of either languishing or they were not gathered momentum to see that essentially the customer requirements, which was primary to our case, is met, and they are in a position to reach out and get their activities done. So, uh, so to say that our digital offerings extended from a perspective that we reach out to customers, which is one is uh, external customers, which is our bread and butter earners, and second is the internal customers, that is our own staff members who had to be reached out to different difficult locations also, so that they can continue to work. So probably these strategies worked out, and we've been able to sail through ourselves successfully without much casualty and without much hiccups in the overall services.
Thanks, Susan. So also, just a follow up to that, what you said. See, we've also seen a lot of public sector banks have also undertaken the digital transformation initiatives now, right? With the EASE 3.0 norms also announced by the government. So how do you see yourself competing with other private sector banks? Do you think that there is now the necessary momentum and uh, necessary support from the government as well that will equip you to run some of these transformation initiatives and get them and compete with the fintechs and private sector players and others?
Good question, Sandeep. Essentially, what happens is that you are looking at a scenario where uh, there are two ways of looking at this problem. One is whether you've been forced, as you said, the government has now given a pep and you have started working, or alternately, second, or which is the first thing for us was that we had seized it as an opportunity and started working on extending our services. Now, looking at what are the activities that are being done, or the second question to you, second aspect to you, which you said, is with regard to whether uh, it makes sense to compete with the private sector or with the other service providers. So essentially, we are in a business which is competitive. For sure, the competition is always there. However, now in synergizing the things, with the other providers, when I say other providers, it would mean those small-time providers which are fintechs in shape, whether they continue to be there as individuals and continue to extend the services, or they synergize with the bank, extend their reach to the maximum number of people or customers that we have. So each bank had their own strategy towards this. Our bank also had a strategy. So we've kind of synergized with the fintechs. We've also created a situation where, or a place where we are now thrashing out what are the type of products which can be offered to the customer as per the current analysis of the data that we have. And third thing is, while looking at these synergies, we've also created a pool of people who have now gone ahead and uh, created a partnership with various different financial institutions or various different educational institutions, which are now front-ending these fintechs as well. So these are some changes which have been seen over the last 1 year since the pandemic, and bank has actually progressed well in all fronts, so to say.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your views. I'll come to the other two private sector banks now. Topendra and Manish. Would be interesting to hear your views as well. Topendra, you want to go start first?
Sure. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Sunilji. Sunilji, that gives a good perspective on the public sector piece. Honestly, I mean, that was good to hear. So from RBL Bank's perspective, there were 3-4 areas. While I think, Sunilji has covered quite a few things that grossly banks would have actually, come up the curve in terms of the advent of the pandemic and therefore higher penetration into digital, higher usage of digital and so on. There were 3-4 areas that we had to quickly pull up our socks and run faster on. while we were already, trudging along well, and we were well placed in the entire digital space otherwise. But there were some things that needed to get organized, because we were living in a scenario where it was more of a hybrid scenario, where what you have mentioned, you had the branch access plus you had digital channels earlier, pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Post-COVID, the scenario changed, where there was a period almost of about 4, 5, 6 months where people never stepped out of their houses at all. While branches were open, they were unable to go out, or they didn't want to step out. So you had to provide for everything in their own premises. That got us a few challenges in space. Okay. One of them was availability of the channels, which was critical, and therefore, build the infrastructure accordingly. Because sudden spurt and usage actually created other types of issues in terms of availability. So that was one. Second is, can we increase or work around multiple other new channels? So, for example, WhatsApp banking was something which was very popular, because migration onto WhatsApp, or rather onboarding a customer's onboarding on WhatsApp was very simple, and therefore certain basic things were available to him where they were anyways present. So, for example, checking off a balance or figuring out some basic transactions out there is something that could have been done around the WhatsApp space or the bot space per se. Therefore, getting it organized and getting it developed in that period of time was something which was critical. The third thing that we worked on was, or rather quickly, was on seeing how we can onboard customers without having to meet them. Now, on one side, of course, NPCI supported the entire cause by introducing video KYC at that point of time. And we were one of those first banks to latch onto it. And while we already had a full-fledged account opening process which was available online, so digitally, so customer could anyways come on board through an Aadhaar OTP KYC as well as PAN verification, and they could actually onboard themselves for a savings account. What helped here was to complete the process through the VKYC process, video KYC process, and therefore we give the benefit of certain things like a good fixed deposit rate, a good savings account rate to the customer completely online, without having had to step out of his secured home per se.
Thanks, Govindu, so much. Wonderful. Manish, you would want to add upon what?
I'll try to attempt what is left. I think Topendra and Mr. Sunil spoke very well. I think Topendra stole all the thunder which I had in my mind to talk about. So nothing much to add. 2-3 perspective. When we pandemic started, we look at already 2 journeys that happened. First thing was to conserve, to protect things. So how do I conserve or protect our employees, our partners, and our customers also, right? Now all the thing around data security, how to enable people work from home, when branches had to be kept open, or contact center was not difficult to bring so many employees in one place to do it, right? Those things are not working. First thing was doing that. How do we conserve thing? And I think every bank faced humongous challenge there. There are some people without laptops. How do we provision them, set up things there? How do I securitize the customer's data, right? So we realized first was that conserve ourselves. Second, for customers, we realized instead of focusing on launching a new product, a new solution, can we use what is already there? Luckily, I think thanks to so many years of digital work by the bank or by government, everybody, I think a lot of things in India, the tools are available, right? For example, video KYC was there, e-sign is there, all digital-based payment is possible in India, right? We could realize that a lot of solutions are there are possible. Loans, obviously, customer wants a loan, but we could not want to give loan because all credit models are gone for toss because of all the changes happening in the industry, right? But we also had a secure loans product available to us. What we did as a bank is the first try to utilize what is already there with us, right? So you already have mobile banking app or WhatsApp banking or net banking. Can I increase usage to the customer? A lot of work went into training the employees, training the relationship managers, all touch points, and that go to customers. Comfort them that your money is safe, your bank is safe, everything is properly. You have option to go to branch. However, if you don't want to go to branch, we can easily get them 85 to 90% of your transactions can happen online, right? Now, with that, we start to say a lot of people who earlier were digital laggards. Like as a bank, as a Kotak Bank, we have high number of ultra HNIs, NRIs, large corporates, and SMEs. I'll say people in smaller towns, people on higher age. So typically in any banking, if anybody will drive adoption, we'll see these are the people who are mostly laggards in terms of digital adoption. However, these are the people who are just don't want to go to branch now. The branches are open, right? So we realize now that we started to go back to those customers and try to increase their digital adoption. Plus, whatever products are available with us, we run that. Now, for example, government started moratorium scheme, right? That's slightly complicated scheme because mostly used by SMEs. But there, obviously, you need, say, if me and my partner both have to sign, right? You need to physically sign normally, right? But now using e-sign, we could enable it, right? So that became a game changer. How can I call the customer, convince them, give them details over the phone or a Zoom call? But after that, they are ready, then no need to have physical form, through website, they can upload document, e-sign in and do it, right? So I think a lot of time in India, luckily, it was more about smartly to use what is already there and efficiently make the system run. That was the first phase. The second phase, I'll say, became more on what more you can do now. Because we all got comfortable. We know it's going to run for longer period. People got comfortable. We knew how to handle innovation over the Zoom call, right? So with that, I think we start to look at the new product, new processes, new areas also. Okay, and that has become now, I'll say, a norm for us to do it. However, I think the biggest change we see transformation happens is, I feel mostly innovators don't, I will say, innovate the product on its own. Okay, it's customer who finally changes his preferences, right? And then the innovators are the first one to capture the customer, change of behavior, and build a product or business model on it, right? For example, small short videos, right? People share or watch short videos, right? Even if one the video app has got closed, there are hundreds other coming up, and customers are okay with it, right? So it's the customer behavior that has changed, and then somebody has to pick up, right? We realize the video is one place which is actually in that phase now, which can be a game changer.
I would like to ask the panel members on how do they see digital transformation in their organization, and what are the key drivers and key learnings. And I'll ask Sachin to start with that more as someone who's working with banks and giving a more outside in view on how do they see this journey for banks.
Yes, good. So when you talk about Indian banking, everybody as bankers is aware about that. Here in India, most of the developments outsourced, right? You work with the vendors. Around 70-80% developments outsourced to the vendors because of the compliance, and they get the deliveries at their end, and they maintain their deliveries at the bank side. So when you talk about digital transformation, I have seen that when I work for the banks, they are really now innovative. Looking at the Indian market, Indian banks are more innovative. The challenge is that when you talk about innovation and digital transformation, how do you make sure that legacy system to be transformed to the completely new era, new digital? Because customer experience is changing, a lot of demand from the business side is coming up. How do you manage that demand, like time to market? There, I have seen that DevOps is one of the methodologies picking up. I know that it's not something widely used in Indian banking, but yes, now there are a few banks which recently started applying the methodology like DevOps. What is talk about DevOps? Typically, a complete digital transformation using the automation piece where you have requirement, then your change management, your deployment, all those things can be managed effectively, and you make sure that your product, your releases, your core banking or your digital banking, your internet banking applications are using the CI/CD platform and deliver on the time. That is something I have seen it. The post-COVID, what I learned it, earlier bank as working as a physical entity, right? An IT department. We as a partner, when we work with the few banks, my staff was actually sitting at the bank premises with large private banks and understanding the requirement. The challenge is that when everything goes remotely, it's a bit tough to understand the requirement from the bank because it's a domain expertise and we need a technology expertise. So that alignment is taking time. But now DevOps is actually giving a lot of entry point to the banks that how do we capture the requirement in a center way so that you can pass the requirement to the respective your vendors. Because today you have multiple vendors, you're still passing your requirements and getting the delivery, and then you're pushing out the production environment or IoT environment, and then subsequently the giving to the customers benefit. That's something I have seen that DevOps is playing a key part. Now we talk about machine learning, AI, right? All those things is a big buzzword. But how this machine learning and AI part comes? You need a data. For data, you need your domain banking application to pull out the customer data and those unstructured structured data to be presented using the machine learning and AI. So the question is, all those things fine, but how do you manage those application delivery to collect the data? There your DevOps, the CI/CD pipelines comes in the picture.
So in fact, I'll come to Vaibhav and Major Ashish now. So do you hear a lot of these words nowadays in your day-to-day life? DevOps, Agile, how, uh, how do I use more of AI and ML in my products and services? Are you does it resonate with you that you're becoming a more and more tech company now, which have a mindset of a technology services company to come out with using technology to offer products in financial services?
Thanks, Sandeep. That's a very good point. But before that, let me touch upon your previous question of being phygital and what banks are looking at, this new phygital thing. Now, let's understand that a lot of these regulations don't allow the bank to become completely digital. To give you an example, a current account opening, the CPV process needs to be done physically. Okay. So no matter how much you automate a current account, it will always be a combination of a digital and a phygital. Okay. In India, with such a variety of demographic, variety of geography, variety of spread, and the variety of customer base we have, with the combination of urban and rural, phygital is something that is going to be here to stay. Okay. If you look at what Sunil Saab was also saying some time back, using the BC network, then today India is around 40 lakh odd BC agents. What did they do? They do banking in an assisted model, and that is the phygital part of the banking. Okay, you talk about services that Topendra will relate to me. You talk about services like digital payments. We are talking about domestic remittances. We are talking about cash out via AEPS. We are talking about micro ATM. We are talking about Bharat bill payment system. Major Ashish will resonate with me. These are all payment services that I am talking about. This all happens in a phygital model. Finally, yes. So what we did was, yes, we brought in our own, selfie stack, which is a digital only, or a Manish's 811 equivalent kind of a, savings account. We supplemented that with, RD, TD products, which were also digital only, and we started sourcing customers on a digital only model. But having said that, phygital is here to stay. Now, coming to the second point, Sandeep, that you raised, does these technology tech words resonate? Yes, they do resonate. In fact, I truly believe that, this is the time when banks don't have to become just the technology processing companies at the back end. This is the time for banks to stand up, to create its own use cases around, API banking, around neo banking. Banks need to start understanding what is it that the customer wants, because banks have been rendering products to the customer that they wanted, the way banks wanted. Now it's time for the banks to understand what is it that the customer wants. What is it that a fintech is doing different that a bank is able to. The moment bank is able to put fintech shoes, bank will automatically become a fintech, and that is where all these processes will start automating by itself. That would be the true form of digital transformation.
Thanks. Major Ashish?
Yeah, so in my sense, Sandeep, if you're talking of digital transformation, digital leadership from an organizational perspective, the first thing that comes to my mind is it needs to be driven as a culture. You can't take it to be a project-based kind of conversation to say, today morning as senior management, I believe today the digital day of the week and this is going to be a digital month. Because then you're not going to build culture. Then you're going to have one-off projects going and you'll all clap and, it'll be some tick on the box somewhere. For that to be this thing, the messaging top down needs to be very clear that we will, and it needs to be seen that the senior management or the CEO is not going to accept paper as part of this process. Easier said than done, because large banks carry legacies. There are regulations around it. But where possible, you need to be very sure that I will avoid a piece of paper in the conversation or the customer journey as far as possible, within the realms of naturally within the constraints of the law or the regulation, right? Along with that, it is, I would say, when we talk, because we've gone through a particular journey ourselves as an organization, when we did RPAs, we've done bots. It's very nice to have all these conversations, but along with that, one needs to be very clear in all these journeys that please be ready to fail. Please be ready to award or reward failure within your organization, because that is what is going to keep the teams going, to say that if we try out something different, our neck is not going to be on the block 24/7, right? Otherwise, people are not going to think differently. They're not going to try and innovate. So that messaging and how you convey that message down the rank and file of your, especially your products and your technology teams, is what is going to come out, is going to be the differentiator when it comes to the transformation piece. Other side is, I would say, pick up projects which are there, built to last, map them with your customer journeys. One size doesn't fit all.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been part of some part of our journey, Sandeep, you know it for yourself. We coined this term phygital, I think in 2016, when we were even writing the application to Reserve Bank of India for Fino Payments Bank at that time, and said that a model will be phygital where the access point will be physical, because a customer who earns, let's say, about 1 lakh to about 8 lakh rupees, which is my core customer base, is not ready for 100% digital transformation. But once he touches my touch point, from there on, the journey will be digital. And वो जिद थी कि उसकी जर्नी वहां से डिजिटल होगी, उसके अंदर I will not allow a single piece of paper. And that is what, those journeys need to map your own customer journeys and where you can take it. Our job as an organization from a customer's journey perspective is to ensure that all tools are available. I can't second judge the customer whether he stays in a swanky building in Malabar Hills or he's staying in Manfred, which is the Bharat of India, residing in Bombay, right? Because they are aspirational in their own terms. 80% of my customer base today is on Facebook. 92% of my merchant base is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, which means if you're socially kind of there on these mediums, you are ready for adoption whenever it suits your convenience. So make sure that your journeys travel that path alongside. Leave choices to the customer and let the customer travel his own journey is, how I would like to put it. Back to you, Sandeep.
Thanks. So I take it that you strongly believe that digital is here to stay, in COVID or no COVID. I think as a market, or I don't know, it's a cultural thing, but physical presence would be a critical enabler for us to drive digital solutions.
So if you're asking me, I would say my entire business model as a bank is defined by the phygital model. I believe in India, people buy from people. I believe two-way communication, it brings them human warmth, empathy, and for at least segment. And again, I would repeat that, it is not, each segment is different. If I talk to my children today who are probably millennials, they like to be left alone and they don't want any advice from including their parents specifically as to how, because they know it all, right? So they probably would like the digital way 100%. But if I'm talking in context of a particular segment, which is, I just defined it for you 2 minutes back, is people from about 1 lakh to about 8, 9 lakh. They need more than scale. They need the safety, the security, the transparency that whatever you are telling them will happen exactly that. For you and me, a 5,000 rupee transaction going wrong in an ATM means only a couple of days and it will come back, because the other bank will, there is a process around it, it will come back, right? Whether you're a banker or not a banker. But for that person, a 500 rupee transaction going bad and waiting for a couple of days for that to be reconciled is a lifetime journey for that person, because the impact is very different. And hence, I believe the phygital model is here to stay in India's context, and specifically in context of certain consumer segments, and specifically in rural and the mass market segment.
Or neobanks, which will then rely on banks at the back end. Have a tie-up between a fintech and a bank at the back end, and offering all banking services over virtual channels. So would be interested to get the panel's views on how do you see these different models emerging, which work, one taking the cultural aspect in mind of the customers and how customers behave, but at the same time how regulator looks at things, and which is enabling newer business models in this space. So I'll ask Amita, you want to go first?
No, please go ahead. But I just said I have a view on this. So somebody who's not spoken, I'm okay.
So Sunil, may I come back to you and you want to share your views?
Yes, Sandeep. It's a very, very good question at this point of time of discussion. And as Major Ashish said, Phygital is the mantra, the flavor. However, much depends on which segment are you catering to and how are you going to do that. So essentially, while you're looking at customer segmentation, it's not that everybody would like to have the BaaS model in place. However, there are some activities which, if not core, can be hived off, can be given to these fintech companies, which can actually do a lot of research and lot of digging for you, which is not core to your activity. Say, for example, only finding out the credit score or finding out the credit history of a person who's not been onboarded in the banking setup. So essentially, in case if you have to look at doing a lot of research or doing a lot of activities, this is where the fintechs today are, coming up as an alternate. And secondly, they are also allowing you to have the business as service model, because banks would not like to go for a capital investment in these activities because they're not core. And secondly, the effort which is required would also require a drastic change in their approach from waterfall to DevOps or quick methods of software development. So looking into all these elements, and since they have a lot of paraphernalia, a lot of baggage to carry, so essentially business as a banking as a service also is emerging. However, much still depends on how much is the regulator ready to open it up for. Because today, getting into only non-core activities and thinking that they would be able to survive or banking as a service would survive may not be a very profitable proposition. However, the companies are still waiting in the wings to see what is the next move of the regulator and how it is adopted by the banking industry, so to say.
So as a bank, that question also goes to Topendra and Manish as well. As a bank, you are open to these ideas and models. We have some other players already offering it.
Why not?
So Manish, you can go ahead first this time.
Okay. So certainly, to answer in a nutshell, yes, as a bank, we are open. Well, again, I come back to what I said earlier, is more about following the customer's need and try to service that instead of being fixed to the way I want to do business, right? If you don't follow the way customers are changing their behavior, their expectations, we're not able to survive in the long term, right?
Thanks. So in fact, we're also running short of time. So maybe what I'll ask is rest of the panel members also to cover your concluding remarks as well as you respond to the new banking and the banking service. Maybe I'll start with Topendra.
Yeah, quickly. So from a BaaS and neobanking perspective, so we had been a little early adapter in this space, and as a bank we have been in this space for a while now. And if you look at it from a BaaS perspective or connected banking perspective, the front runner also has been NPCI to some extent with UPI coming in, and then UDAI with Aadhaar coming in, and so on, and offering them as APIs. That is where the entire start of service as an offering came in, and they actually stamped it with legitimacy. Similarly, the banking services. So we what we have done is we are essentially also very connected in the partners ecosystem, and we as a bank, we thrive on the partners ecosystem quite a bit. And given that scenario, the belief within the bank, or the belief that we have, is that based on various kinds of journeys that these fintechs are coming up with in specific consumer segments, they excel in that space to some extent. So therefore, what happens is the front end being managed by a fintech, and the account and the rest of the accounting remaining at our end, and we forwarding the various microservices of our systems, banking systems, to on their front end, and we offering it to the customer, only extends our reach. Now it is a little different from any of the other banks per se. Maybe, say for example, Sunil ji mentioned, his PNB is at a different level of evolution versus us. Okay, so we being a fairly younger chapter in this avatar, so we are we for us extending the reach in this format makes much more economic sense than anything else.
So from technology perspective, yes, as a technology partner, the banking as service definitely is fronting to be by the fintech companies, and the key aspect of that security and the compliance, because domain, the core banking has to follow some compliance from RBI, and they have to make sure that breach from them to the fintech has to be established to cater to the end customer. That's a very important factor. And Sunil was talking about the agility, because there are a lot of things are changing every day. The business demands today that they want to launch, let's say, new scheme tomorrow. They don't want the tomorrow, they want today, maybe yesterday. That's something business demands. How do you make sure that these all the changes coming to their in customer side the faster way? We cannot follow just the waterfall thing. It's agility. You have to agility. Then Manish, I think Ashish was talking about the culture. So when we talk about the bank and as a technology partner, important challenges I have seen that culture. You have to bring our culture transformation first for the DevOps, and then you talk about technology, because there are many tools in the market. There are a lot of innovative technology in the market. The only thing is you need a people who are ready to change and adopt that culture. That is a key part for the digital transformation. And talk about banking as a service, neo banking. Yes, it's again the change, the culture change.
My sense in today's context, if you look at neo banking, defines customer experiences, specific use cases. Can you really call it neo banking in India's context? My mind, no. There is no banking license that exists. It is basically fintechs who require a bank or a financial institution, the backend, to plug in, because that's a regulated entity which is finally responsible towards the customer, responsible to the regulator. How much of control can you exercise when you go with such models is something the organization needs to answer for itself before you step into it. Either you are the platform into which fintechs plug in and you have all the rules built into that platform so you can control the risk, the liability, to whatever extent is answerable to a customer or to the regulator. Second side of it is to say that I would want a fintech to service a set of customers who I can't reach out to, because I don't want linear growth in my model. In that context, to be remembered, is that going to be you creating competition for yourself, or is this something you can collaborate and reach out better to population which was never anyway your population? Because in a linear growth model, if you're not able to reach out, better to collaborate with some good fintechs who created some good use cases, have a distribution reach, either digital or physical, and move forward. But then these are the questions that you need to answer for them. One, who owns the customer finally? And in case of an issue, where did the liability lie? And can you bring it down to a contractual agreement or build it into your model? Secondly, you want to work it as a collaboration, because tomorrow you do this. Please also remember that if the fintech has an aspiration tomorrow with India's banking scenario opening up, move towards any of these licensed condition banks, which are in payment banks, small finance, universal commercial bank, have an aspiration moving that side and have given a better customer experience than what you through your applications, well, that customer might just not be yours tomorrow then. So that's the context you want to remember. You want to take your calls, keeping few of these factors in mind. Back to you, Sandeep.
Thanks so much. Vaibhav.
Yeah, and not just that, quickly adding on top of what Major Ashish was saying, what happens is the customer actually is owned by the bank and not by the fintech. Now, essentially what happens is, and we have all seen the way the domestic remittance market has happened, the product becomes so commoditized that today, that API is selling like a, what can I say? It's a very commoditized product. We don't want neo-banking, products to go that way. And that is why, I initiated my day's talks saying that, banks also need to learn. Banks also need to learn to create customer-centric products. Yes, I agree with all my peers when they say that, fintechs are agile and fintechs have a very custom use case that they are catering to. But banks will somewhere have to learn, bring that flavor into the product, and then maybe use fintech only for the distribution or only for the technology, not maybe for both of it. That's my 2 cents on it.
Great, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's where I think as banks, we all have to become more technology enabled and become more and more technology at heart, because you would want to retain your core competency of retaining the customers. And otherwise, you're open to competition from that angle. So I think that's great, and I think we've shot the time as well. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you so much for your time, for wonderful comments. And we have Babu also now, Babu and Ashish. And any other concluding thoughts from your side?
Thank you very much, everyone. It was a wonderful session together, and we could gain a lot of interesting insights. What we will also do is we will share some excerpts of this conversation even in our magazine, Banking Frontiers. And we look forward to a lot more comments from all of you. Whenever there is answers to the questions required from the audience, we would request you also to share the answers to that. Thank you for a wonderful conversation, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for inviting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Babu.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sandeep.
Thank you very much.